In the latest in our series of conversations with the major players in the airline industry, I flew to Johannesburg to spend some time with the CEO of South African Airways, Vuyani Jarana.
You take a look at the history of the development of long-haul flights. If you look at TAP in Portugal, they had to stop in the Azores because they couldn't make it to Lisbon. Now you can make it non-stop.
Absolutely. We have non-stop now with the 340-600 straight from Johannesburg straight to New York. And obviously the aviation sector has developed a lot of innovation to develop ultra-long haul aircraft, so which enables customers and passengers to travel seamlessly. So you do a stop because you want to do so, not because of technology limitations.
What's interesting to many of the people who've come to Africa is that for so many years in terms of aviation, you were almost the forgotten continent. And only a certain number of airlines that were state-owned were just controlling their territory, and they weren't looking at the bigger picture. The only way I think you can survive is to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, of course. We have to look at the big picture. We have to look at partnerships in different parts of the continent. For example, one of the things we've done now, we're working with the Africa World Airline, which is a small boutique airline with very, very good umbrella jets in West Africa that is based in Accra. So they do connectivity right to Monrovia, Freetown. So then we network with them. They do the feed defeat. So we're looking at specifically doing that for Central Africa as well as East Africa. Then we can carry passengers with the right economics. This is how Africa will evolve, and we promote transport networks in the continent.
There's open skies, there's visa, and there's fifth freedom rights. Those are three things that if you had them would really turn things around.
Yeah, absolutely. What it does, it enables us to land in a country and further connect from that country to other cities.
Where you're not based.
Obviously, what we're looking for is possibilities. For example, if you look at Nigeria, we would like to land into Lagos and be able to operate from Lagos to the US, Lagos to London, for example. So we can improve all the broader economics of West Africa. Accra has given us that possibility. All of a sudden, Accra is becoming a hub because of freedom rights that they've granted to us.
With 54 separate entities making up the continent of Africa, can you actually get everybody in the room at the same time and say, let me explain open skies to you?
No, certainly not. I don't think it's going to be possible, because I think at the AU level, broadly speaking, there's been a broad consensus at that level. What's important now is us as business leaders to focus on bilaterals, looking at how we implement in country, in a region, and I think if we approach it that way at a business-to-business level, business-to-government level, we should achieve success. A lot of ground has been done by the AU in this regard.
You know, I was talking to President Kagame in Rwanda, and he has an airline. And of course, what's the one thing he wants to do? He wants to fly to the United States. And they may get it next year because they've got the equipment now. You have the equipment. You're flying to two locations right now. You're
Absolutely.
flying to Washington and JFK.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd like to go to Chicago and Los Angeles.
Certainly. I think the US market is very important to us. I've spent a lot of time in the US meeting trade, understanding what the customers want. There is a big affinity to the SA brand in the US. So we only flying into two destinations. Our interest is to fly into more destinations in the US as we transform the airline, as we improve our own financial construct within which we operate. We believe that US is a big market for us, and I think it's a market we want to tie strong partnerships with.
It's true. I mean, the other day I was flying from Johannesburg to St. Helena on Airlink, your partner.
Yeah, our partner.
And
Yeah.
we land in Windhoek, and they won't let us off the plane because no fifth freedom rights, no local traffic. And the economy of St. Helena is so dependent on visitors and tourism. I hope that they can make that work because they need it.
I think we have to take this thing step by step. I think over a period of time, governments will understand the role of the aviation sector in promoting economic growth and promoting tourism. And I think some of the countries that have shown great success, for example, Ghana is one country that has opened up their space and are saying we want to drive tourism, want to create a hub in Accra, and those are achieving success. And I think the more
they become the model.
They become the model. I think that more countries are going to model themselves on the Ghana model, and I think you'll start to see a lot more opening of the skies. Yeah.
And the other interesting thing is, when you take a look at where it's worked, the travelers follow. Because they can say, I'm not going to look at the world as a one-dimensional destination every time I travel. I'll go to 2, or I'll go to 3, because you're making that possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's clear benefits from a tourism point of view, creating hubs. I think the continent will evolve. More and more countries are going to look at the Ghana model and start opening up possibilities to open up air transport networks in their own countries. Yeah.
Mr. Varana, you came from the mobile telephone area. So you had a fresh pair of eyes on this. You were able to say, you know what, I'm not only looking at this as a businessman, I'm looking at this as a passenger.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't feel handicapped by not having the deep aviation experience, because I've got strong technical teams that come from deep aviation. But what this does, it makes me look at this business as a retail business, a business which is about customers, which is about proposition. Of course, safety is an absolute focus for us. So, but the business model and the commercial models we are putting in place are unorthodox and are not the traditional airline kind of commercial model and focus. We are really looking at it from a retail point of view. So we are trading seats here. Seats are perishable product. If it has got no one, then it's perishable. So how do you make sure that you are able to put together strong propositions that address customer needs? And that's how I'm approaching it.
Of course, there's the big bad word called yield.
Of course, very, very important.
I could price the seats at $2 a ticket and fill the plane.
Correct.
And I'd be out of business in a week.
Absolutely. And this is where I talk about that is balancing scale and margin. So because at times there's a tendency to chase scale, chase revenue. It serves its own purpose because it brings it brings cash flow quickly. But if the quality of those revenue streams are not anywhere contributing to profitability and margins, then effectively you are digging yourself deeper and deeper into the hole. So I'm bringing that balance, that tension point, and that's how you trade in a very good, strong, commercially focused organization.
And if you take a look worldwide at what's going on now, you're seeing things start to fracture at airlines that are not necessarily your competitors, but do compete in the global market, that are considered low-cost carriers because they may be flying new equipment, but they're pricing themselves at such a point where they can't even maintain debt service.
I think what's important, yeah, that's the phenomenon you see in the market. But what's critical for us as SAA is to really, really be very aggressive and very focused in taking out costs. So the cost structure for SAA is too high today. We have to work very hard in bringing down costs of operations, because when you do that, you give yourself a headroom to compete. Obviously, there's going to be low-cost airlines that are competing. There will be full-service carrier. There's a new phenomenon now coming through, which is a low-cost, long-haul. We are exploring that, how to play in that space. Yeah, exactly. So we have to play in that space as well. So the single biggest focus for us is to take out costs at SA to give us a bit of a headroom to compete in a highly competitive market.
At the same time, you're competing in many cases against those low-cost carriers.
Yeah, of course, we're competing against the low-cost carriers. Fortunately, in our stable, we've got Mango, which is...
well, you created it.
Yeah, we created Mango, so at least it gives us a place to play in the...
You've given them routes to fly that you're not going to step on them.
Well, in the domestic market, they compete with us. They fly the same routes, but they are addressing a particular segment of the market. They have a very specific proposition. But what we have then done, we've created what we call a hybrid airline proposition. For example, you've got the low cost, you've got a full service carrier, but in Mango we provide a quasi full service carrier in a low cost carrier. So therefore, if you are in Mango, you are in a hybrid model. So you are able to have three propositions.